The apartment felt like a hollow shell, dimly lit by the soft glow of a single lamp that flickered every time thunder rolled through the night. Ethan sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, phone gripped so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Every few minutes, he checked for notifications that never came, each second stretching longer than the last. The storm outside mirrored the chaos rising inside him, violent rain slashing the windows, wind rattling the frames, the world outside reflecting everything he couldn't say out loud. For 4 years, Maya had been his constant, his anchor, but tonight she felt like a stranger living behind closed doors. The silence of the apartment grew heavier, pressing down on his chest like a weight he couldn't lift. Ethan wasn't just waiting for a text. He was waiting for a sign, any sign, that he hadn't already lost her. When the phone buzzed, Ethan expected a message from Maya, but his heart dropped when he saw Liam's name instead. A shaky video loaded on his screen, the booming bass of rooftop party music echoing to the tiny speakers. And then he saw her, Maya, moving in ways he hadn't seen in months, laughing freely, leaning into Dylan like he was the only person in the world. Her hands were on him. Their faces were inches apart. Then the kiss. Ethan's breath caught, the room spinning as he dragged the progress bar backward and watched again. And again, the betrayal wasn't just what she did. It was how easily she did it, like the last 4 years had become a disposable memory. Ethan whispered. She lied again, the truth carving into him deeper than any argument ever had. It wasn't insecurity. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. And it was on when Maya finally stumbled through the door at 3:40 a.m. The scent of unfamiliar cologne clung to her like evidence she didn't bother hiding. Ethan didn't shout. He didn't cry. His voice stayed painfully steady as he asked, "Was a work event good?" The annoyance in her eyes was instant, dismissive, practiced. "Stop being insecure," she snapped, as if the truth were an inconvenience. But when Ethan mentioned the video, he saw the shift. First guilt, then irritation, and finally that cold, sharp dismissal she used whenever she wanted to end a conversation without owning her choices. After everything he sacrificed, she still made him feel small. And when she whispered, "Maybe you're not enough," something inside him broke cleanly. Ethan didn't pack much, just one bag, one chance at dignity. Before leaving, he looked at her one last time and said, "One day, you'll remember this moment, and I won't be here." Deniable. Ethan Carter grew up in a world where nothing came easily, not affection, not money, not stability. Raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, he learned early that life demanded discipline and sacrifice. While other kids played after school, Ethan mopped floors at a diner or helped neighbors with odd jobs to earn a few dollars. Poverty didn't harden him. It humbled him. It made him soft in ways the world rarely rewards. Overly forgiving, overly patient, overly willing to give more than he received. This pattern followed him into adulthood, especially in relationships. With Maya, he bent so far to keep her happy that he forgot his own needs. He turned down promotions, moved cities, and even helped pay off her student loans. He believed love meant loyalty, even at the cost of his dreams. And because he feared losing people, he never dared to say no. Maya Sullivan grew up in a completely different world, one padded with comfort, compliments, and the kind of effortless privilege that made consequences feel optional. Her mother praised her beauty more than her achievements, creating a belief that attention was currency and validation was oxygen. Maya was used to being adored, forgiven, and excused. She loved Ethan in her own way, but was a love built on convenience. He was stability, gentleness, a safe harbor from the chaotic choices she often made. After their breakup, her carefully curated world slowly unraveled. The romance with Dylan fizzled within 6 months when he cheated on her, an irony she couldn't ignore. Her job performance slipped, her lateness became habitual, and after a series of warnings, she lost her position. Now she worked part-time in a cafe, scraping by, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quietly. For the first time, she faced life without a safety net. 5 years later, Ethan had transformed into someone even he barely recognized. Now 30, composed and emotionally untouchable, he had rebuilt himself in the ashes of heartbreak. His startup once a tiny idea formed during sleepless nights, had gone viral for its innovative mental health-centered workplace model. Companies across the country invited him for seminars and restructuring consultations, seeing in him a clarity they desperately needed. Meanwhile, Sullivan & Wade, a massive corporate firm owned partly by Maya's father, was falling apart. Toxic leadership, low morale, and internal chaos were dragging the company toward collapse. In a final attempt to save it, they hired the best, Ethan Carter's firm. Maya, now working part-time and fighting her own battles, had no idea that the CEO leading the rescue mission was the man she once dismissed so easily. Their worlds, once separated by pain and pride, were about to collide again, and this time, Ethan held all the power. The lobby of Sullivan & Wade buzzed with the usual corporate rhythm. Heels clicking, printers humming, phones ringing, but everything seemed to freeze when Ethan Carter stepped to the glass doors. He walked with a calm authority, tailored suit immaculate, posture confident, every detail reflecting a man who outgrew his past. Behind the reception desk, Maya stood wearing a faded cafe-style uniform the company made receptionists reuse when budgets tightened. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes revealing sleepless nights and quiet battles. When she looked up and saw him, the tray in her hand trembled, metal clinking against ceramic. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. He looked older, stronger, colder, nothing like the man who once pleaded for honesty at 3 a.m. Their eyes locked, and in that instant, she saw everything she lost reflected in his unreadable expression. Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't soften. He simply nodded and walked past. Minutes later, employees gathered in the glass-walled conference area, unaware that a storm of history simmered beneath the polished surface. The VP of Operations stood proudly beside Ethan, offering a warm handshake before addressing the staff. "Everyone, this is Ethan Carter, CEO of Cartercore Consulting, the firm guiding our restructuring." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Maya stood off to the side, body stiff, fingers gripping the edge of the front desk as though it was the only thing holding her up. The title alone, CEO, felt like a slap, but Ethan's controlled posture, his quiet confidence, his indifference toward her cut deeper. He scanned the room professionally, and even when his gaze flickered over her, he didn't react. No emotion, no recognition, as if she was simply another employee. The imbalance of power was undeniable. Once, she dismissed him. Now, the entire company was at his mercy, including her. After the meeting, Maya waited until others dispersed, her heart pounding so loudly she felt it echo in her throat. She stepped forward cautiously, like someone approaching the edge of a cliff. "Ethan, can we—" she began, voice cracking before she could finish. Ethan turned to her with the same professional detachment he'd shown the VP. "Please direct all work-related concerns to project team email," he said, tone polite but firm, not unkind yet undeniably final. "Personal matters are not relevant here. No anger, no bitterness, not even curiosity. Just a closed door she once slammed in his face, now sealed from the other side." Maya felt a sickening realization sink into her stomach. The past wasn't haunting him. It was haunting her. He had moved on, rebuilt, evolved. She was still standing in the ruins she created. And for the first time, she felt truly desperate to explain, to redeem, to undo what couldn't be undone. In the days that followed, Maya attempted every small gesture she'd think of. Tiny, careful attempt to reopen a door that Ethan had welded shut. She approached him with soft greetings, trying to sound casual, but he always replied with the same courteous, distant professionalism. When she brought him a cup of coffee, his favorite blend, remembered from a different lifetime, he accepted it with a polite nod, then handed it to another employee without hesitation. The gesture wasn't cruel. It was controlled, disciplined, as if he were setting boundaries with surgical precision. When she finally gathered the courage to apologize, her voice trembling, Ethan didn't even look angry. "We're not here for emotional reconciliation," he said evenly. "Please focus on your duties." His words were calm, but they hit harder than shouting ever could. To Maya, each interaction felt like walking through a museum of memories where everything she once had was locked behind glass. What Maya couldn't see was how tightly Ethan held himself together when she walked away each time. On the outside, he was still calm, efficient, untouchable. But inside, the old wounds clawed their way back to the surface. At night, when the office lights dimmed and he returned to his hotel, memories played on a loop. The shaky video, the kiss, the 3:40 a.m. confrontation, the words, "Maybe you're not enough." Despite all his success, those ghosts still knew how to find him. Adding to the emotional strain, his investigation into the company revealed layers of corruption. Financial leaks skillfully hidden, employees underpaid, departments collapsing under pressure. And at the center of it all was Maya's father, who had buried the problems while maintaining an image of authority. Ethan felt torn. Professional duty demanded he expose everything, but the personal history tangled around the company made every decision feel heavier than it should. Late one night, long after the employees had left and the building's energy had faded, Maya found herself alone in the lobby, overwhelmed by everything unraveling at once. She had learned about the impending collapse of Sullivan and Wade, the hidden debts, the toxicity her father had disguised for years. When she confronted him, he didn't protect her. He blamed her, called her a disappointment. And in that moment, she felt something she had never experienced before, the sting of being unseen, unheard, unvalued. It broke her. She sank onto one of the lobby benches, covering her face as silent sobs shook through her. That was when Ethan entered, stopping in his tracks as he saw the woman who once crushed him, now crumbling beneath her own life. Through tears, she whispered, "It took losing you to see how selfish I was. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry." Ethan's jaw tightened. Without a word, he turned and walked away. The boardroom was suffocatingly silent as Ethan connected his laptop to projector, each click echoing like a countdown. Executives shifted nervously, sensing the gravity of what was coming. Ethan took a breath, steady, calm, unshaken, before pulling up months of financial records, hidden losses, forged reports, and manipulated accounts. Every slide peeled back another layer of deception, revealing the scale of the fraud that had been silently bleeding the company for years. Maya's father sat stiffly at the far end of the table, jaw clenching each time Ethan spoke his name or pointed to a falsified signature. But Ethan wasn't vindictive. He presented only facts, delivered with the same professionalism he'd shown since day one. When he finished, the room buzzed with whispers, anger, disbelief. The board huddled, deliberated, then delivered the verdict. Immediate removal of Mr. Sullivan. He was escorted out as Maya stood frozen, watching her family name collapse in real time. When the board reconvened, the atmosphere was electric, fear, admiration, and desperation mixing in the air. The chairman glanced at his notes before turning to Ethan with a level of respect that no one had shown in months. "Mr. Carter, given your findings, leadership clarity, and the trust you've built within the departments, the board would like to appoint you as interim CEO." Gasps whipped around the room. Even Ethan blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Maya, standing near the door with trembling hands, felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The man she once dismissed as insecure and not enough was now being handed the position her father had held for decades. The company's survival, its restructuring, morale, future, was now entirely in Ethan's hands. Employees stepped forward to shake his hand. Senior leaders nodded with gratitude. Maya watched with a sinking heart as the power she once took for granted now belonged to the man she broke. Later that night, Maya found him standing alone on the rooftop, the same kind of place where she once shattered him without even knowing the weight of her actions. The city lights flickered below, wind tugging at Ethan's jacket as he stared into the horizon. Calm but distant. When she approached, her voice cracked before she even spoke. "If you want revenge, I deserve it," she whispered, tears making her eyes shine. "But please know, I did love you. I just didn't love myself." Ethan finally turned toward her, his expression softened but guarded, shaped by years of healing. "Maya," he said quietly, "I didn't come back for revenge." She held her breath, hoping, just for a moment, that there was still a window left open. But his next words closed it forever. "I came back because I finally learned how to walk away." Then he stepped past her, leaving only the wind, the city, and a history she could never rewrite. Under Ethan's leadership, Sullivan and Wade transformed from a crumbling corporation into a place filled with genuine purpose. He restructured departments, exposed outdated systems, and replaced toxic managers with people who valued empathy and productivity equally. Employees who once walked through the halls drained and discouraged now greeted him with respect, even admiration. Meetings became collaborative instead of hierarchical, and new initiatives sparked excitement across teams. Ethan became more than the interim CEO. He became a symbol of what leadership should look like: calm, fair, accountable, driven but compassionate. Yet the most remarkable transformation wasn't professional. It was internal. Every day he walked into the building, he carried himself with quiet pride, not arrogance, not bitterness, but certainty. The boy who once feared abandonment had grown into a man who understood his worth. Maya's ghost no longer followed him. The pain she caused no longer defined him. He had truly moved on. After the board meeting and her father's downfall, Maya finally saw her life with painful clarity. The front desk uniform suddenly felt like a reminder of every shortcut she had taken, every responsibility she avoided, every version of herself she refused to face. She resigned quietly and enrolled in therapy, an act that terrified her more than losing any job. For the first time, she wasn't running, blaming, or distracting herself with attention. She confronted the hard truths: her craving for validation, her emotional immaturity, her selfish decisions. Sessions were messy. Some left her shaking. Others left her hopeful. She took small jobs, saved money, learned discipline, learned empathy. Slowly, she felt her identity forming, not around beauty, not around relationships, not around being admired, but around growth. She was no longer living in the shadow of who she used to be. She was rebuilding from scratch, properly, honestly. Their final conversation happened on a quiet afternoon in an empty meeting room, sunlight spilling to the tall windows. Maya approached Ethan with a steadiness he hadn't seen in her before. She didn't flirt, didn't plead, didn't perform. She simply breathed deeply and said, "Thank you for everything you did, even the things I didn't appreciate." Ethan studied her, noting the new clarity in her eyes. Not perfection, growth. "We were both young and broken," he replied gently. "But only one of us decided to heal." His words weren't a wound, they were truth. And Maya didn't crumble this time. She nodded, a small tear slipping down her cheek, but her smile was genuine. "Then I'll heal too," she whispered. In that moment, they weren't lovers or enemies. They were two people who had outgrown the storm they once created. Ethan walked away free. Maya stayed behind determined, not to win back, but to finally win herself 5 months later. Ethan stands alone on a quiet pier glowing gold beneath a breathtaking sunset. The waves rolled gently against the wooden posts, each splash sounding like a soft exhale from the world itself. Peaceful, rhythmic, and calm, just like his life has finally become. Ethan's hands rest casually in his pockets, shoulders relaxed, no longer carrying the weight of betrayal or heartbreak. From a distance, Maya watches him silently. She doesn't dare approach. She knows this moment isn't hers to interrupt. Wrapped in a long coat, eyes glassy with emotion she can't voice, she opened her phone and types a message she will never send. "Thank you for showing me what losing a good man looks like." She reads it once, breath trembling, then locks her phone, accepting a truth she can finally face. This goodbye doesn't need to be spoken to be real. Just as Ethan inhales the ocean breeze, a gentle, warm voice floats across the pier. "Ethan, over here." He turns, and there she is, Claire, radiant in her confidence, her smile bright enough to rival the sunset behind her. She isn't dramatic, she isn't chaotic. She is steady, kind, and present in all the ways Ethan once begged for in silence. The difference is striking. With her, Ethan doesn't feel like he's surviving. He feels like he's living. Claire waves him over with playful impatience, the kind that comes from comfort, not insecurity. Ethan takes one last breath of the ocean air, but he doesn't look back at Maya. He doesn't need to. His past has already released him. His steps toward Claire are light, natural, like a man finally choosing a life filled with peace rather than pain. This moment marks not just a new relationship, but a new version of himself as Ethan reaches Claire. She slips her hand into his with the ease of someone who intends to stay. Together, they walk away from the pier, their silhouettes glowing beneath the fading sun. Behind them, Maya remains a distant figure, No longer a villain, no longer a lover, simply a chapter that is closed. The narration feels like a quiet whisper from the universe itself. Sometimes, walking away isn't the end. It's the beginning of finally choosing yourself. And Ethan has chosen healing, chosen peace, chosen a future built on something healthier than heartbreak. It's not revenge. It's not victory. It's growth. As he and Claire disappear down the pier, the scene freezes on the soft clasp of their hands, a symbol of everything he fought through to get here. Healing didn't arrive loudly. It arrived quietly, in the form of finally loving himself enough to let go.